GMIHub is accepting new songs for their 2023 Christmas compilation. To find out how to submit your song, go to www.gmihub.ca today. GMIHub Family Christmas Volume 4.
Now is the time to submit your original Christmas song.
The Who is You. If you're a songwriter and would love to be a part of our Christmas compilation project, then you're in the right place.
Where can you submit? GMIHub.ca is the place. Please visit our website at GMIHub.ca and click on Family Christmas to find out how you can submit your song today.
You could be a part of the GMI Hub Family Christmas Volume 4.
Hey everyone, welcome back to GMIHub Online. I'm your host Cheryl Dewick, and tonight we are going to be talking about song production, but also song production with voices. This is such a great conversation. And he is my co-host and wonderful husband, Daryl Dewick. Daryl, did you want to say?
Hey, here I am. How's it going?
It's going good. Aren't you excited about today? This is going to be so cool to be talking about this topic.
I am. It is really cool because we've taken a little bit of twist. Instead of just putting it into the studio, we're actually getting somebody to help us talk about getting prepared before you get into the studio so the guys don't have to spend as much time fixing it in the mix.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
but you know what, Cheryl? I'm gonna jump in here before a second. I was thinking about this earlier today. I didn't tell you I was bad. I want to go camp on something that's still a little bit on this tech-related side. I was working all weekend, working with a bunch of bands, some really good high-end, high-quality, A-listers in Canada, and then all the guys up and coming as they're on stage, running around, doing their thing. And one of the things that as a camera op and a camera director for large corporate events and festivals, I just find I'm going to give this little word of hint to all the bands that are making the stages that haven't been on stages much. Do not run to the drummer and stand in front of the drummer while you guys are ending the song. The only chance we get to shoot the drummer is probably at that time, and you're running around and all we see is the backsides of people. Leave room for everybody to be seen and give the guys their chance to be seen that can normally not get seen. That's just a word of advice. Don't turn around and point your backsides at people, and don't walk in front of other people. Walk behind them if you're going around so that they're all seen. Just a little side note, pet peeve of mine. Back to you, Cheryl.
Well, that is some good advice. And hey, you know what? We should probably have a whole conversation on that. Etiquette when there's cameras around on stage. That's probably a good conversation to have. So if you want to hear that conversation, why don't you put a note in the chat saying that you'd like to get more information about and more tips about what's the etiquette when on stage and working with the cameras and sound and all that around you. That would probably be a good conversation, but you tell me if you want to hear it. Anyway, before I introduce our panelists for this evening. Let me remind you that, of course, you're right now watching GMI Hub online. You're on our YouTube channel. Please go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. And if you want to know more about what we are doing, if you want to click in and want to be made aware of what's going on with GMI Hub, go to our website at gmihub.ca, which is right there on the screen. And we also want to tell you, you can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on TikTok, we're on, I missed one, Instagram, that's it. We're on Instagram as well. And you can definitely follow us along to see all the different things that are happening with us. But as you saw at the beginning, if you may have seen that we are doing a few projects. One is a Christmas compilation project where we are encouraging you who are maybe songwriters or singers or producers to write some songs and submit it to us for consideration to be in a compilation project. What we do with that project is simply this. We take these songs, we put them as a package, we put them on Bandcamp so that they have the ability to be heard, to be seen, to be
you want to say that again? We lost you.
Well.
You froze.
And also we tried.
We lost you.
Froze?
Do you want to say that again?
Oh.
Bandcamp and...
Sure. We put them on Bandcamp so that they can be seen, heard, and purchased so that you get some funding out of that. We also share those songs to different radio stations right across Canada to give them the option to play those songs on the radio. And in past, we have actually had radio stations pick up those songs and play them during the Christmas season, and not just in Canada.
Actually, I'm going to jump in here.
Yes.
The whole last album was
Yes.
One of the radio stations out of the States actually took the whole album and played the songs from the album.
That's right.
So not just the odd one, the whole album got played.
That's right. That's right. And that's just a testament of what quality has been coming and how interested radio stations, not just in Canada, but around the world, are beginning to get interested in these songs. So if you want to be a part of that circle or that cycle, definitely submit your song. Go to gmihub.ca to find out just how to do all of that. Okay. Also, we have one other thing while you're on the website. There's an opportunity for you to sign up and be a part of our community. And all that simply means is it's an opportunity for us to connect with you and you to connect with us. We want to be able to celebrate you and your achievements, whether you have released a song, whether you are working on a song, whether you are at an event, whatever it is that you are doing that helps your music career, we want to be able to celebrate and share that with you. So we would love for you to connect with us and share that information. What we do is we put them in our Hub Happenings, which is a newsletter we send out once a month to inform the rest of the community of what's going on so that we all can celebrate one another. So that's one of the things that we do. We also run events. One of the events we do is an artist showcase. If you are a person that wants to be a part of that, again, sign up to be part of the community and let us know that you're interested in being an artist for an artist showcase, and we would love to add you to our list. We are right now aiming to do artist showcases about 3 or 4 times a year, but we have been getting a lot of feedback saying people want to see that more often. So if that is something that you want to see, let us know, and we can certainly see what we can do to work towards that. Okay, so all of that commercial stuff to simply say, I think we should introduce our panelists, right?
Yes, please do.
All right, so our panelists are I'd love to say they're right around the world. Our first panelist is Oleg Golovetsky from London, England, or United Kingdom. He is no stranger to GMIHub online. He has been here before on a few studio talks, and we're so thrilled to have him back. Oleg, thank you. Say hi.
Hey everyone.
Awesome. We also have brought back Anthony Paiano from Exodus Studio Productions in Mississauga, Ontario. Anthony, again, not a stranger to GMIHub Online. He has been with us a few times. Actually, he was here in our last studio talk, and we're so glad to bring him back today. Anthony, say hello to everyone.
Good evening. Welcome.
Awesome. And also no stranger to our panel, and I'm so thrilled she was able to meet us today, is Noreen Smith, who is a vocal technician, and she's with the Connected Voice. We have had her on a few times, and if you have watched our previous episodes with her, you know that the few little hints that she gives are like, so we're so thrilled that she's able to be with us again. Noreen, say hello to everyone.
Hello, nice to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so we're taking off from the last few studio talks. We're just to catch you up for those of you who may not have been with us. We have presented a sample Christmas song, Christmas chorus, which would be an original. It's nothing that's been heard before by or played before by anybody else. So it's something that we have presented to producers like Oleg and Anthony. We asked them for their opinions on what kind of background music would they put behind it, what kind of instruments, what kind of feel that they kind of sense behind it. And we've asked them actually to create some samples so that we can hear. So I know that I asked, I'm trying to remember. I know Oleg had something, and I want to hear that. And I know Anthony felt more of a jazz feel towards it. So I'm really, really curious to hear all of these backgrounds. And while we listen to these, I'm asking Noreen to hear what she to give a feedback of what she hears and what kind of voice that she hears behind it, as well as the producers to find out what they hear behind that and how that can all be achieved. Okay, so let's start with the samples. Okay, we'll go in alphabetical order here. Anthony, your name starts with A, so let's start with you. What kind of, talk to us about your sample. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I did is, in this case, it's just one second here. Yeah, so what I did is I just, it's a sort of a starting point. It didn't evolve much except for taking the vocal track and coming up with some chording, some harmonic progression to go along with the idea of using a sort of a jazz genre to, of course, what you'll hear is predominantly the piano part that I'm just going to play as I go along with the track. Once I've established a harmonic progression, then I'll begin to figure out, okay, how am I going to apply all the other instruments and where they're going to be placed. But this will just give you a basic idea of the type of accompaniment or the type of progression that would go with Cheryl's voice. So here.
Church bells ring, everybody singing Christmas carols in whatever key they hear it in. Hopes are high, love's in the air, 'cause Christmas is calling, Christmas is calling. Church bells ring, everybody singing Christmas carols in whatever key they hear it in. Hopes are high, love's in the air, 'cause Christmas is calling, Christmas is calling. Wow, that is so cool.
So
that is
that's
so cool.
So that is very sort of basic. Everyone has a different way of working out an arrangement with a vocal track. Mine is, being a piano player, I'll take the vocal, especially if they haven't provided me any chording, no progression. I'll have to come up with something. So I work with the melody, and then I start trying different chord structures to see what's going to work, and keeping in mind the genre. So once I've chorded the whole melody, then I'll go about and start arranging it according to the different instruments and however it's going to progress from there.
So as I was hearing that, and the way you were doing that, I almost got the vision of the stand-up bass kind of grooving along with
Yeah.
you there. Um, uh, Drums, but kind of a on the brushes kind of idea. I don't know if I was right with that, but that's kind of what I was hearing. Um, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if I heard. Go ahead.
no, I think that
What?
you're right. I mean, and that's how I would envision it. But then again, I would collaborate that with the actual vocalist as well. In terms of what do you want to hear. I mean, we can add
Right.
so many different elements, and if you want to keep it traditional, sort of traditional jazz type of style, then we would consider certain generic instruments, like you said, brushes, piano, upright bass, maybe some horns. Um,
Hmm.
Pretty traditional, right? Unless they
Right.
want to take it into a different genre, which you still can apply jazz. It can be like a smooth jazz type of vibe, right? It could be
Right.
still with the jazzy element, but now you've changed it's more of a groove based
Hmm.
arrangement, right? So there's
Right.
so many ways to go about it, but a lot of it will depend on the artist. Exactly what are they envisioning.
Right. In terms of the vocals, what style of vocal would complement that genre a little bit better? Because I heard the voice and it was like it was the sample that I gave you. What um I don't know if I'm asking the right question, but just basically what what vocal are we going to try and achieve with that kind of a background, do you think?
So when you created your sample, what were you thinking in terms of style? What was in your mind initially?
I was just happy. I was just being happy. Just be
So
happy and bouncy. That's kind of the idea that I had. So,
right,
so,
so
so,
there was no preconceived idea of, okay, so I think this will sound good in the style, that
mhm,
style. It's just you just had your melody, and then you went from there, right?
right, right. That's pretty much what came to my mind. So, like just kind of like I said, like just a happy sound. That if I had a picture of it, it would be the almost like literally waking up to a brand new day, and it's a crisp morning, and we're seeing all these happy things around, and walking down like walking down a street, and people are singing, and some of them are singing off key, and that kind of like it's just crazy thoughts, but
Mm-hmm.
just but yet happy, just kind of a happy thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the idea that I had in mind. So, but I wanted to hear the jazz style because I just wanted to know like what that would sound like behind as a behind the scenes, and also knowing that we've heard some jazz singers. We have one that's been on our team. um, I'm always curious to find out what's the style of voice, like what element in the vocals would need to help bring that jazz style out a little bit more, right? I don't know if I naturally have that, but I'm just curious. So Noreen, I want to get you in this conversation as well. So uh, what kind of a style of voice would you have heard, or would you have encouraged with that particular style, or what would you encourage an artist to do to complement that style a bit more, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think I'm really interested to hear both of the versions from Anthony and Oleg, because your vocal could have gone a few different ways, and so I think that makes it really it's going to be an interesting journey here. But the first thing I would probably do is ask a singer, what do you want your listener to feel when they're hearing this song? And that can kind of help determine the level of energy. What kind of story are you telling? So it sounds like you want to have people feel just happy and excited for Christmas. This, is kind of what you described. So, because we could interpret those lyrics. I mean, you could put them in a minor key. You could put them, you could do slow
Yeah.
it down. You could do a lighter, more breathy jazz vocal. You can do a little more of uh, a really strong, peppy gospel or pop sound. It really depends on, like, I would probably just feel out with the singer first and what do they want their audience to feel, because I'm always looking at the big picture and the end product. So your listener
Right.
is ultimately who you're creating this for. You're imagining the person sitting there listening to it. So so doing, something more jazzy could be a little bit, I mean, it could be like you're gonna swing it a little bit more, or it could be you go a little bit lighter, a little bit breathier on the vocals, or you could go a little more pop and you could make every consonant really crisp, like Christmas is coming, or you could say church bells ringing. You're like, you're
Yep.
not singing the ing, you're singing the in, like it's but decide first how you want your listener to feel when they're listening to your final product, and then work back from that. So then that, for me, that helps determine what the singer is really going for. And yeah.
Cool. Cool. Okay. Anthony, did you have in your mind how the voice should go? Like what kind, like to go kind of more breathy, you think that would make it more better, or to go more
my first inclination when I first heard your sample was to go into that direction. Maybe I'm a little biased because I like jazz and I play a lot of it, so I don't know, maybe, but your voice sort of pulled me into that direction, right?
Yes.
Now there are certain elements in your voice and the way you sang that line that sort of brought out a little bit of that going into that direction. Now, of course, if you chose to go into that direction, in other words, you decided that that's the genre, that's the style that you want to pursue, that once the arrangement is done, I'm sure that vocally you will rise up even more so into that.
Right.
John, because when you just put down a vocal track, there's nothing to work with. When you created it, you didn't hear any music. It was just a cappella. Now, once the music goes in, and then you go and then you redo your vocal, you're going to approach it differently, and I'm sure that you'll rise up even more so within that genre. And that was my natural inclination, that your voice sort of suited that style, and if you did decide to go into that direction, then we would discuss some elements of how to solidify and add certain elements to that melody vocally, the way you would present it, more, let's say, more jazzy, let's say, right? Some more more inflections, more nuances to solidify that genre within that genre.
Awesome. Okay. So, Daryl, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, my thoughts. Oh, I was going to wait to hear all this because I was going to ask a little bit more on the tech side of a few things, and I'll hit up Anthony and Oleg at the same time on that.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Yep, that's fine. Okay. So let's get Oleg in this picture. Oleg. You still there with us? There you are.
Of course I am.
And remember, guys, he is in London, England. So that's what 1 o'clock in the morning there for you now.
Well, half 12, but
okay.
I'm here
Close
because
enough.
I love music, and especially talking about music. What can be better at this fine night? Yes. So I'll play the sample, and then I guess we'll talk about it more after this.
Yes.
Church bells ring, everybody singing Christmas carols, and whatever key they hear it in, hopes are high, love's in the air, 'cause Christmas is calling, Christmas is calling. Church bells ring, everybody singing Christmas carols, and whatever key they hear it in,
Oh, wow. You
Well,
got the whole big band in there.
Yeah. So one thing that I believe me and Anthony have in common is what we managed to gather from your vocal is that I think we both felt the shuffle feeling, and I think that
Yes.
the reason why would Anthony would probably choose jazz, and I would probably do too. I don't know. I just didn't think of it, of a jazzy thing in the moment. But what I felt in the moment is that it needs to swing, it needs to be jolly, it needs to be happy,
Yes.
and it needs to be, I don't know, overwhelming, even.
Right.
Um, so that's why I've got, like horns, I've got like brass instruments, I've got like, I think I even have like a bit of a violin somewhere, like or cello's playing some parts. And obviously your sort of walking bass type of, yeah, tune, sorry, it's too late. Yeah, so it's, no, it's a very cool tune, and when I heard the sample first, is I don't know, I just go with the way that the feeling presents itself, and as long as I can know the BPM, the key, I think I can work and make it work. Sound, I can make it sound obviously sad as we discussed previously, but yeah, I don't think that's what the what well that was not your intention, basically.
No. Well, you both captured the happiness. That was the whole goal. Is that uh, to kind of tag onto what Noreen was saying. If I were to, I was going to try and not keep me into this, but anyway, if I were to say anything about the song, yeah, it would just be that happy feeling. By the time you're done, you're happy. You should have like a skip in your step, and even if it's a bad day, it's actually a fun day. It's a great day. It's that kind of feeling. So. So, in terms of the vocal, would there be any kind of change or any style of vocal that you'd want to encourage a little bit more with the sound that you came out with, Oleg?
Do you know what? I love the feeling that you presented in this sample.
Mm-hmm.
I love how you. I think, if I remember correctly, because it's been over like a month or so, when
Yeah.
I listened to the sample for the first time, so my
Right.
my memory could be a bit rusty at this point. But I think if I remember correctly, I felt a bit hesitancy in the first place. But then, as the song progresses or the sample progresses, the recording, you become more confident with your lines and with
Yeah.
your singing. And that's what I like about that. It's super humane. Probably Nora gonna suggest something else where you can control that and have that sort of openness all the way from the beginning till the very end, and that's something to do with vocal techniques, with maybe preparing for the recording and all of that. But I've got not much say to that. I mean, I can suggest something that I have from my own experience, but yeah, I kind of like that because it shows how naturally vulnerable you are as a singer, as an artist in the moment, and the fact that you captured it on this recording makes it a lot much more fun to me. So that's why I like that. The thing that I probably would have suggested is probably re-record in a better circumstances and environment, because you can hear a lot of noises, distraction, background noises. I mean, but that's all the technical side of things that can be fixed. With the proper guidance, with the proper equipment. Nowadays it can be fixed easily, and I've tried to work with this sample, try to clean it up as much as possible. So like, that still kind of sounds like a song. Maybe the samples of my instruments are not great because you can hear them, they're MIDI, they're not real instruments. But I mean, the goal wasn't really to create a Grammy awarding song right as of yet. So that's why I've decided to stick with just simple samples and simple sounds that will work for the song and for your vocal. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Noreen, what are your thoughts here? Now that you've heard two different ones.
Yeah. So yeah, the second one is definitely a little more poppy. It's a different kind of energy. So yeah, I would probably think about recording with a lot of consonants, if that makes sense. Like like the difference between like a little bit lazy Christmas carols in whatever key they hear it in, or Christmas carols in whatever key they hear it in. Just and then you can kind of play with vibrato. Do you want more of the first one? You might want a little more of a jazz vibrato. Whatever key they hear it in, it's gonna be a bit lighter. Again, it depends on the feel that you're ultimately going for. So, but between the two, yeah, I would do a slightly different vocal because as Anthony said, once you hear the accompaniment that your producer has come up with, it kind of inspires you to match it with your vocal. And so, yeah, I would probably on both of them, I would lean into a little bit more consonants, a little more clarity. And then even on kind of the more on an acting side, like I would almost even encourage someone to speak the words in kind of the attitude and the excitement that they want their listener to feel, and then see what words and what syllables that you really leaned into when you spoke it, and then use those as an inspiration in your vocals to help tell the story.
Okay. I've not heard that technique before, but that sounds cool. I like
So, are
it.
you saying more of a musical feel, or literally somebody like Christmas is coming? What's like? I'm trying to get what you were talking about that.
Yeah, so I would say so how do you feel about the Christmas carols in whatever key they hear it in? Hopes are high,
Yeah.
love's in the air. Like is that how you're feeling? And so when you're singing it, like I I had a different attitude about whatever key they hear it in. Like, I don't care. And then Love is in the Air. I really leaned into that one because that's just how I was telling the story. And so then vocally you could probably lean into that word a little bit more. So it helps because our ultimate job as a singer is a storyteller, right? And so if we can get someone to join in our story, then by kind of acting it out a little bit and seeing how you would say the words to somebody and then singing them, kind of taking that into consideration, I think what it ultimately does is it draws your audience in, and they don't know why they can't uh press pause and move on. They have to keep listening and they don't know why, but part of that is that you're pulling them in because of the way you're telling the story. So that yeah, just telling it literally, speaking the words how you would say it in the energy of the song that you want to ultimately get to.
Right. Right. Wow. This is a lot to think about. Daryl, you had some questions you wanted to ask from on the tech side.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with this, and it's really not fair, but this is kind of actually where it makes it really interesting. Cheryl sent to you the sample track, and did you guys do any processing on it, and what did you do? Or if you haven't done it, what would you do to process the sample track that she gave you? I don't know who wants to go first.
Well, I didn't process anything. Oh, I may have added if I added some reverb or something. Let me see if I did. No, I didn't add anything to it. It's pretty dry, and I think the idea with this was because I knew where it was coming from. It's sort of a rough take. There was no point spending too much time on trying to make it sound any better per se, right? The information was there, and it was enough to guide me into creating a harmonic progression, right?
Right.
So in terms of technically, I didn't really think it was necessary, because in a situation where I was working with the artist, they're going to redo that track anyway, right? Although I find it does help when a track is being provided that has it's a good sort of a good take. You know, a lot of times when I'm working on someone that's locally, you know, they come to the studio and they will give me a ghost track. So, you know, once we establish the tempo, the key, and all that sort of thing, I just get them to go into the booth and have them record the track. I may at that point in time, I might not even have a progression, right? I'll just, you know, just hit the key just to keep them in key as they're singing through their verse, chorus, whatever, bridge. But you know, because they're recording it in the studio, the quality is going to be better than somebody recording it on their device and sending me the track, right? Which I've done that many times as well, right? It just does help when you're putting it all together, and there's a bit of an inspiration that comes over you when you're working with a little bit more quality, right? Although even though that will be redone anyway, but you know, having something that has a little bit of clarity, and it's concise, it's in tempo, you know, in key, it does help in going from the beginning to the finished product, right? And if it's not a good take, for instance, it does have a bit of, what I do is I just bring the volume right down. Right, I bring the right just enough so that I can hear the melody, so that it doesn't throw me off, right?
Right.
So that's usually that. You know, that's my take on it.
Okay, let's just say by chance this is the pitch quality, the rhythm quality, and that is the track that you are going to have to go with. What would you do to tweak that? And I think what we'll do is we'll put a link to that your scratch track there, Cheryl, just so guys can maybe play with it a little bit afterwards, if they're wanting to go and listen to it and try and think of what Anthony was talking about. So what would you do? Would you do a some type of pitch correction, verb, gate, compress?
Are you still asking me?
Yes. Because I know
Okay.
Oleg did something. Oleg actually did something, so we can go back and we'll talk to Oleg specifically about that.
Well, first of all, I will. If, for instance, if that's their track, and that's what they have, and that's it, I will give them a reality check by telling them the truth, right? That this is not. First, you know, you be honest and you say this is not the best quality, right? But if that's all they have, you know, then what you can do is you can do a little bit of, if there is pitch correction that needs to be done, you can apply it. You can do some EQing and all sorts of things to try to make it sound better, right? But, you know, at the end of the day, it's what it is, right? And it could become the weakest link, and you know, it may not translate very well in terms of the finished product, right? So I would suggest in a situation like that, let's say they're not local. Let's say they're from some other place and it's too far to come to the studio to record their vocals, which I have done before. What I would do is I would create a mix for them and then just have them take it to a local studio that they can get to, record their vocal in a good microphone, good environment, and then they can send me the vocal, and then I'll mix it into the arrangement. But you know, as far as to answer your question, yeah, you know, you would go about it and do some EQing, reverb, delays, you know, all the type of processing to try to make it sound better than it is.
would this track need a fair bit of that or not? And I know we're kind of picking on Cheryl because it is a scratch track, but if that is what it is there a lot of work that would need to be done to do that, or would you kind of just go like?
Yeah, because there's a sort of ambient noise. It's not super clear. It doesn't have the substance built into the recording to become a sort of a finished product.
It is a scratch,
Okay.
right?
Well,
It is a scratch. It is a scratch
It's a
track.
ghost track, right? Yeah, it's a
Yes.
ghost track, and it's what it is, and that's what you got to work with, because that's
Yep.
your melodic line, and you work with it, right? But in terms of the finished product, in my opinion, it wouldn't be professional enough, right?
Okay. So, Oleg, to you.
Oleg.
I know you actually went and did some stuff with it. You actually went and spent some time. So, do you want to tell us what you did? If you did much?
So, I've got a terrible habit of trying to fix the unfixable. And everything that Anthony said, I definitely agree with that, to all his point that he just said. Yet, despite knowing all of that and doing all of that, I still, yes, I did some cleaning up as much as possible using the tools at my disposal, like Isotope RX. And then, trying to clean up the ambient noises and trying to make it as dry as possible with the tools that I had, and then make the vocal wet by introducing the effects, and then trying to boost the low end with an EQ, and maybe get rid of the maybe further room noise like a 600, and and all of that, because I tend to mix and master more regularly than I would probably work on the recordings and productions. I mean, I still produce quite a fair bit, but mixing and mastering something that I do on a regular basis. And sometimes you do end up in situations where you've been sent a track, and one of the tracks is genuinely how to say, how do I say it? Like, I wish to desire that it would be just better. It would be recorded in a controlled environment, and then yeah. So sometimes there are things that I can do that I can get away with. In this instance, because this is a vocal and it's the star of the show, it needs to be pristine, no matter how much processing I put on that vocal, no matter how many hours I would spend, like, it still needs to be ideally redone because it's the star of the show. And if the waveform itself, if the file itself doesn't contain all the good information that the track needs, there's not much that I can do. I will have to recreate it, then re-record it myself, but I'm not the singer. So I'm not the star of the show. So that's why it's very important, even if you're doing a ghost or the scratch track, and let's say you work with a producer, it would help immensely if you just have a better environment, or like at least maybe have a word with a producer and say, well, I've got this environment, I only have my iPhone, and or like a phone that I can record into. How can I make it sound the best that I can do? And then I will probably have a few tricks and tips on how you can do that even with a phone. And I'll tell you, like, a lot of good demos come from the phone recording, and voice memo is considered to be one of the best recording tools in the world, so for the demos. So, and some demos even end up being in the final recordings. There's like this Billie Eilish song, and her brother, they recorded like some of the samples on the phone, and they ended up being part of the production. So like a guitar, or like some streams of, or like sound design even. So there's nothing wrong with that. We just want to make sure that you will get the best results with the resources that you have, as a producer, or as a mixing engineer or mastering engineer. So like, yeah, if you're in a situation where you don't have access to like a very expensive microphone, or very expensive studio or like studio at all, and you still want to submit a scratch track for whatever reason, yeah, just maybe consult with your producer or whoever you're working with.
Yeah. If it's any consolation,
Okay, so
that track that I did was actually on the phone. It was actually from a phone. So I feel better now. I don't know I could do that.
You totally can. There's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
for sure.
and she
Sorry,
didn't even
Daryl.
have anything accompanying her to begin with, so that was all continuous a cappella. So I just figured I'd put that in there. Go ahead, Cheryl. I'm sure you got a couple more questions. Yes, no?
Well, another question that came to my mind was background vocals. Now, I know that I gave you a scratch track, and you're mostly concentrating on the lead vocals, but I'm also thinking now about background vocals. Would they be, well, obviously they're not the prominent because they're background, but would they also have to match the style of the lead vocal in the sense of the, if it's more jazzy or sultry sounding, or kind of like church bells are ringing, or however I can't do it the way Noreen did it. She did it so well. I have to get some training, Noreen. Right? but you know, would that mean the background vocals have to kind of copy that style? So, for example, I didn't provide this, so I'm just kind of thinking on the fly here. If they kind of imitated the horn sound, like a ba-da-da-da, like a church bells ringing or something like that, would they have to have that kind of jazzy, piercing? I don't know if it's piercing or sultry. I'm not sure what the right word would be, but I'm just curious about background vocals. How would we record that, or how would you suggest to record that? Or Noreen, what would your thoughts be on background vocals?
Yeah, I think, of course, it would. I can think of several options for background vocals for that scratch vocal. I mean, you could go full gospel, so that would be a specific harmonic makeup that, you know, we'd have the like the third above and the like it would be very specific, and it would be with you, you know, wouldn't be echoed. It wouldn't be, you know, if we're going more jazzy, then it might be more what you did, kind of echoing the horns kind of thing. And then if we're going more pop, or maybe more 1950s, or, you know, like there's different options we could do depending on the ultimate feel of the track. So yeah, I mean, sky's the limit. It just, like, within the genre that you end up producing the song in. Yeah, could be a lot of options, a lot of fun ones.
Yeah. Anthony, in jazz, is there typically, like the style that you chose, that you did, would there typically be background vocals, or would that be more like, I kind of see that, like the feel I got of that was more intimate, if that makes any sense, right? So I don't know if background vocals would be there, but would there typically be any background vocals for that style?
Well, for instance, what I provided you was very basic. It's a basic,
right?
It's a basic chording with maybe, you know, I kind of added a bit of a bass line on top of that. But when you're completing the track, obviously it's going to be a lot bigger, more stuff going on, and then with the backup vocals, then once your lead voice, the way I do it anyway, once the lead voice is down, then we can look at options as to where can we put the backups, and are the backups going to be, like Noreen said, are they going to be stacked, you know, basically working with your lead voice, or are they going to be on its own, sort of responding to your voice? And then yes,
the big gospel choir in the background. Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, so then again, you know, if it's jazz based, then you're gonna have, you know, typical chording to match the the harmony of the chord. So those elements would play out once the song has been sort of complete and your voice is done. And then afterwards, you can start considering, where can we add the voices, and where can we fill it in and make it interesting. Just that's how I would approach it.
Okay.
And of course, then there's sorry, one more thing. Then there's, are you what kind of lines would you be using, like riffs or whatever, even within the backup, like you were imitating sort of horns, right? Well, you can do that with voices too, right? And make it sound kind of cool.
Okay. Oleg, with the rendition you came up with, background vocals, yes, no, possibly.
I would do the choir, maybe. Yeah, rather than just having background vocals, maybe have a background choir, but you cannot put a choir in the background. It's too cute. Yes, I would probably come up with something where you have some sort of ensemble. Let's put it that way. Of the vocalists, and where I would record, well, at least with my song and with my production. I don't feel like necessarily at this point it needs it. Maybe let's say you would have a bridge that would be quiet. So you let's say you've got like a verse that is probably like somewhat happy or like neutral. Let's put it that way. I'm just gonna come up with something at 1 a.m. that probably not. I'm gonna watch back and it's not gonna make sense, but bear with me for a second. So like verse that is some sort of somewhat neutral, then you've got chorus that is super happy, and then let's say you get a bridge that is sort of creeps onto the explosion of happiness of the Christmas itself and being the morning, and like that you probably can go some sort of minor mood where you go from sad to happy with the choir or the ensemble. And then probably the last chorus could be the whole crowd together. Let's say the music drops and then everyone claps, singing that, and then the whole choir goes mad, and everyone claps, and then you get like then it switches into the probably gospel type of choir. I don't know, like just all of these ideas you seem being born on the spot. So yeah, this is something that you could probably experiment with and try, but it obviously was the main goal, because it can easily kind of turn into like a probably more of a musical than at this point, that you can probably play on the a song for the Broadway or like for the West Ends. I don't know. So like like you can play with it however you want, however your imagination allows you, but everything needs to have a purpose. So if you're trying to be next to Mariah Carey, then probably I'm not sure how to top that in terms of the backing vocals, because when she uses them, it's quite epic, so like, and it's pretty impactful. So let's say if you trying to hit that kind of market, right? So you've got to be very careful with how you experiment and what you're trying for, but like sometimes within those experimentations, like you can get crazy results that actually work.
Right. It's like the sky, it's like Noreen said, the sky's pretty much the limit with this. And as we're talking about it, I'm actually beginning to see, yes, the sky is the limit with a lot of, like, there's so many options, so many possible directions. Yeah, Noreen, I got to spend time with you here on my vocals.
I had some more thoughts about that.
Go for it.
So I was thinking about how one of my, not hard and fast, but one of my rules as a singer is that if I'm going to repeat something that I've already done in a song, that I need to change it on some level. And it could be melodically, it could be like I change where I put a word just to keep the interest going. And then you can take the melody up to like a higher place, and now your background vocals will follow. And so that makes every time you do something where you've already done it in the song, you're repeating a chorus or something that you're going to make a change in it. Yeah, it could be where you place a lyric. You could pause, you could say it a little bit differently, or it could be where you completely take the melody up to the next kind of harmonic point in the chord and follow that up. So yeah, and like I can hear it in my head for this song, just ways that you could change it up every time you repeat that vocal line, or even if you repeating the same words and the same lyrical line, I like to change it up. You add a riff, or you take it up, you change the melody, or you change where you place the words a little bit differently.
Right. Now you're not talking
It's
about
very
a
much
key change per se.
jazz idea. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're not thinking of a key change per se, but working within the same chords or same key and just moving up within that key. Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like the I don't even know what key I'm in anymore, but like hopes are high, love is in the air. Is that how it goes? I've already forgotten it.
Church bells ring, everybody singing Christmas carols and what? I'm in a totally different key now too.
Hopes in the air. So yeah, hopes are high, love is in the air. Like you can do stuff like that,
Yeah.
where you completely change where you take it, or you add a riff or something like that. Yeah. Just
Okay.
because
Okay,
again,
yeah.
it's just ways to keep your audience interested in the story you're telling.
Yes.
And,
Oh,
and if
wow,
I
this
can
is so
interject,
And then you want to make sure that you can do the things vocally. I think I've been in some sessions where I noticed that a singer is hesitating and trying to go for those moments, but vocally they don't know how to do it, and so they pick something safe, and then I'll just be sitting there and I'll go, so what did you really want to do in that moment?
Right.
And then we might make up a quick vocal exercise that'll get them into what they wished they could do. And then suddenly they're like, oh, I actually wanted to do that, that thing and take the melody up to that point, but I didn't know I could do it. So I did a safer option. And now they like
Right.
the recording better because we just snuck in what their heart really wanted to do. We just found a way to do it. So
Right.
so that's something, just like studying and really knowing your instrument in any instrument, but as a singer, like being able to do everything you hear in your head when you're creating something, because you don't want to ever block that creative process. Like what you're hearing in your head is probably great. So if you ever feel yourself hesitating and picking a safer option, um, I just find it fun when I happen to be there when that moment happens, and I can help someone go, yeah, I actually wanted to do that thing. And then we do the thing. And now it's on the
Yeah.
recording, and they're like more excited about their song because now they can do what was really in their head all along.
Right. That's cool. Anthony, you were going to say something.
yeah, I do agree, like with Noreen, that having contrast is important. You need to have contrast so that it's not sound like a copy or cut and paste type of thing, right? So adding inflections, or even creating a transposition going into another key, which is done regularly just to create that lift. And in regards to the backup that we were talking about, one thing to consider is when you are considering using a backup, are those backups going to be you creating the backup? Or are you going to bring in an actual other singers to create the backups, the harmonies. And that, of course, will be dependent on a few things. One, budget. If you have you do have a budget to, let's say, bring in some singers. It doesn't have to be huge singers. I mean, many people, because they can always overdub and layer. But that's something to consider if you want to add harmonies. Is it going to be your own voice that you're going to? Well, a lot of people do, right? They don't have the budget for bringing in extra players, so they'll end up doing all the backups themselves and layering it. And I mean, that's one way to add that extra texture. Or you bring in some other musicians, all right? But that's something that you either, people that are willing to do it as a favor, or you have to compensate them for that. So that's something that has to be considered prior to the, as you're thinking of the song, the arrangement, and all that sort of thing.
That's a good
And if you
point.
want to do it all by yourself, I've got a TikTok that explains how you can achieve that.
Oh, okay. We got to look into that. I was just gonna say, when you talk about doing background vocals by yourself, the one thing I've heard some artists do this, and sometimes it works, and sometimes to me it doesn't. And the reason for that is I'm really strong on, if there's background vocals, I usually think of harmonies. If there's harmonies, I usually think of this blending sound, like a sound that almost sounds like it's one voice just singing different notes at the same time. And sometimes when someone does a background vocal, they sing it, it sounds like it's them, how to say, they're not blending with their own voice, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes any sense, but to me, it's what it sounds like. So for me, if I were even to try and sing background vocals, I'd be very concerned about being able to blend with my own voice and recognizing that I'd have to change my tonality to match whatever tonality I originally came out with for whatever line. I don't know if that makes any sense and if you've even experienced that, but that's what I've personally kind of heard. So anyway, that's just my thought, right? So I don't know if you've heard that kind of thing. Does that make sense to you?
Well, there are multiple techniques that you can apply when you're trying to record yourself multiple times. One of them, the most effective way, is when you do that, you change your tonality, and that works really well. And you go far. Let's say you have one take where you're very close to the microphone and you sound very intimate, you sound very close, you're like right there, and then another take is going to be way behind in the corner of the room, another take in between, and then like you do all kind of things where you have tried to change your vocals, and then eventually you might sound like a choir. That's why I like this. And let's say you've got dozens of these takes, then you pan them to the left and right all over the place, and then it sounds like there's like a big background vocal happening as a choir. But obviously, to your point, what you just said, like you. So I understand the question correctly. So as a backing vocal, are you afraid to kind of overpower the lead vocal?
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to?
There's either an overpowering, but it's not. Yeah, there's overpowering, or it sounds like it's competing voices as opposed to blending or supporting the voice. If that makes any sense. So if I, for example, if Noreen was singing, I know we can't do it because of time delay, but if Noreen was singing very powerfully, I'd want to try and sing powerfully, harmonize to her very powerfully to match her tonality, and probably she would do the same with me. But I wouldn't want to try and compete and not compliment her voice. I'd probably crash my voice trying to do that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to do anything to crash the voice, or not crash the voice, to overpower the lead.
Well, I think that's probably more of a producer's job. I think, like, or in the mix would be maybe where that problem is, because if I'm doing background vocals, I'm going to try to match the vocal tone, if they add a little cry to their voice on a syllable, or they breathe in between a word, or I'm going to try to match it as closely as I possibly can. And so I think that's more of a, like, it's no longer the singer's problem on that level. I mean, unless they're not matching at all and it just doesn't work. But I think that's like, that should be the vocal producer's job. And like, you guys can totally say no and defend yourself, but I think that's kind of out of your hands. Like, that shouldn't be the singer's job to balance the mix.
Yeah,
I would definitely agree.
I found that when I'm using real like backups or like different people, the texture is different. The nuances are different. It just creates this element that sometimes it's hard to replicate just by one person doing their own backups. Even by changing the EQ and doing all these techniques, I found when you have 5 people and they're all singing together, I usually record them in stereo to start with, right? Versus if I have one voice, I'm recording that one vocal in mono and then do it a whole bunch of times and then panning it left, right, and all that sort of thing. But when you have, let's say, 5 vocalists in front of 2 microphones and they're all singing that part, and then you just overdub it, or you have them sing it again and again, right? And sometimes what I'll do is I'll have them change positions as well, right? So that it vary the positioning that they were originally singing in. I find it adds this real texture of realism, let's say, right? And that's what I've noticed when you're working with backups and you have the opportunity to work with more than one singer or more than yourself, let's say.
Right. Wow.
I got a quick question. I won't say a quick question, but my question for Noreen is, now that you've heard Cheryl a little bit more on a scratch track, what would be the advice to not just her, but anybody else as they're getting prepped to go into the studio? And we will tell them, call Noreen, right, to get prepped up. But what are the basic things? I know Cheryl has the straw, and you might want to explain what the straw is and a few things before.
Yeah, do I have one here?
Yep.
Yeah, so vocal warm-up is always great to come in warmed up and ready to go. But you do tend to sing a lot of hours, sometimes at not ideal times of day when you're recording vocals. So I have my straw, it's tiny one. It's like a coffee stir stick kind of size, but round. And what this does is it creates a back pressure onto the vocal cords of air and sound waves, and it gives your vocal cords a little massage, and it's kind of amazing. And then if you start to get vocally tired in the studio, you can also use this to kind of reset your voice. So starting with a good warm up, and then coming prepared with ideas. Sorry, I should quit my mail so I don't keep having like this ding sound. So coming prepared with what your vision is, and be prepared to to work collaboratively, but working out some riffs, working out ahead of time multiple options, if that's what you're putting in your song, working out the maybe some ideas for background vocals. You want to come with ideas and then be prepared to collaborate, to also leave some of them behind, because you're working with creative people that hopefully you trust, but you want to come having some idea of what you want out of your end result. But yeah, like a vocal warm-up can go a long way, and then just knowing what you want and also being ready to hear from the people that you're trusting with your creative process. So being teachable as well, I think, are both important.
Awesome. With Anthony and Oleg, if we're going into the production studio, is there anything on top of what Noreen said that you would add that you would like your vocalists to be prepared with if they were coming to your studio? Oleg. Oh, Anthony. Okay.
I guess that Anthony starts first.
Oh, okay. Well, I think, as a vocalist, you don't want to come to a studio and start working on technique, right? You don't want to try to figure out, okay, I should do it this way, that way, this way. I think all that should be done at home, as far as all your homework and all your practicing and all your, basically deal with all the technical aspect at home. And then when you come to the studio, it should be a performance, right? It shouldn't be, okay, let me see, I forgot to do this or I forgot to do that. I got to work on this. I got to breathe more here. All those kind of things are a bit, I think they take away from it's a performance, right? Even though it's a recording, but it should be approached as a performance, because that's what people are going to feel and experience when they hear your recording, right? When they hear your song. So that should be all worked out, including knowing the song, having it memorized, opposed to reading a lead sheet or a lyric sheet. So once you start looking at something, you're kind of getting away from the performance once again, right? The song should be so inside of you. It should be so integrated inside your mind and heart that when you go sing the song, and really when you've done all that, going to a studio shouldn't take more than a half hour, really, at most an hour to record the lead vocal. You do a few takes and it should be, you should catch it right at the beginning. As soon as you go past a certain time frame, now it becomes a technical exercise, and like you're trying to work things out. You're trying to fix things, opposed to catching it right at the front end of once you enter into the studio. Maybe one time you might do it as a warm up, but then after that, it should really be pretty concise, opposed to trying. I find, and this is just my own feelings on things. Like I have people that come in here and they want to do it in parts, right? They want to do, like, they'll do a verse and break it into like 5 parts, right? 5 sections. And I'm thinking, okay, well, you're kind of breaking up the whole the feeling of the continuity of song, opposed to just do the whole song once through and then do it again and then do it a few times, and then we can pick the best of all takes, right? Some people, they want to do it in sections, right? Small sections. Anyway, that's my thing. Yeah.
Wow. Oleg, what would you say?
I definitely agree with Anthony that people should come prepared as much as possible. I don't get the luxury of that, to be working with people who come in always prepared. So my motto is to make sure that the vocalists are feeling comfortable by seeing you confident. By you being relaxed and having things under control as a producer or the engineer in the room. Because if you are, as person who's in charge of the room and the environment, are stressed out, then the sessions go sideways. So that's why I believe that the artist or the singer's comfort would be priority, no matter whether they're ready or not. So that's something that I would focus on as a producer. But at the same time, not every singer or like every vocalist who are watching us might have this luxury as well. So listen to what Anthony and Noah said. Like, come prepared, do your homework. Be as ready as possible, and try to. I mean, essentially, what we're trying to do as producers and engineers is to capture the performance. And I know that technically you can be as ready as you can be, but I would actually add that mentally you've got to be in the right place. So make sure that you pick the right people who you can trust, who you can be open with, and be ready to be exposed in a way, because you're going to be opening up in front of someone else. Your soul, your performance, like you're going to be sharing this in someone in the room. And if you're not ready to do that with someone in the room, then probably you're not ready to release the song, because you're opening yourself to so many other people in the world who can go and listen to that song. So yeah, definitely try to focus on the experiences emotionally that you're sharing in the song, so that performance can be captured, and that emotion can be captured, and that experience can be captured. Because yes, I totally understand that technically you should do your homework, but in that moment, as soon as I press record, that's only you and that microphone and 1,000 or billions other people who will hear that song later on. So that's a big opportunity and a step for you to showcase who you truly are.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said. And also, just to add to that, I think it's important for the singer to have a relationship with the producer or the studio owner, right? So that you are comfortable enough to, like you said, you are sort of exposing yourself. It's a vulnerable state. So it's obviously a very psychological mindset that you are, basically, you know, you are exposing yourself, and of course it could be just you and the producer at the time, just both of you in there. So if you have a decent relationship where you don't feel intimidated or judged, or you don't feel intimidated to be able to sing in front of him or her, that's an important part. So I think the relationship element is also a viable component in order to get a really good performance. And I find a lot of times when I'm working with singers, I try to get them to focus on just the performance, because the mistakes that they make along the way, or if it's a pitch issue, those can be fixed very easily, right? Especially with the technology we have today. It could be a great performance, but they were a little pitchy, or let's just say, right? Well, that can be adjusted on the fly almost, right? And rather than, or they can just go back to that one little section, just redo that one spot, right? So, but just focusing on the performance as a whole, and don't worry about mistakes or anything of that sort. You can always go back and adjust those.
This is great. This is great advice. So I am, I won't say overwhelmed. I am just taking it all in. And this has been an absolutely great conversation. I don't know, Daryl, if you had any other questions. Usually your favorite question is, what mic would you use to record?
No,
you didn't ask that question.
No, no, because we'll I think when we walk into the studio, we'll probably do a whole section on working through the microphone selection. We'll literally sit there, and poor producer and engineer as we do that and walk through that. But I think that would be really, really good in the explanation on that.
Okay. All right.
That would be my opinion on that. So depends if they want me in there with cameras and everything else. Well, that'll be an interesting discussion.
Well, well, I would love to thank Oleg, Anthony, and Noreen for being here. This conversation has been, I'm full of knowledge and ideas now. I'm realizing that the sky is the limit. And I hope that if you are a songwriter and you have a song that, hearing what Oleg, Anthony, and Noreen shared would inspire you with your song. And maybe you have a song that may not be Christmas, maybe it's something else, but just hearing about the different techniques that can be used before you get into the studio, or hearing what the different song samples, background samples that could work for your particular song can give you a flood of ideas. It may be mind-blowing for you. The thought of having background vocals or different instruments, all of this means, you write one song and you may have one idea, but there's sky's the limit. And I hope that you are encouraged by that. And if you miss some of this, I hope you can go back and just listen to some of this information. There's a lot of meat in here, a lot of golden nuggets that I hope you can extract for your songs. And I thank our panelists for being here. Thank you, Daryl, for being a part of this as well, as he's listening and very, very methodically listening to this conversation. And remember that if you want to find out more about GMIHub, go to gmihub.ca. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more information. And of course, like and subscribe. If you really enjoyed this, put some comments in the notes so that we know what's going on. And hey, if you liked what you were hearing, even with the samples, let us know about that. I think that would be such an encouragement to Anthony and Oleg for all their hard work. And if you want to contact our friends, Anthony, Oleg, or Noreen, go to the notes just underneath this video and you'll see their websites or social media there. Until next time, which we will be back next week, with how to capture your song, capture your story in a song with Rosalie Hubenkamp. I'm sure you're going to love hearing that conversation. You tune in with us next week. But for now, I'd like to say have a great week, and we'll see you next time here on GMIHub Online.
Bye.
Now is the time to submit your original Christmas song.
The Who is You. If you're a songwriter and would love to be a part of our Christmas compilation project, then you're in the right place.
Where can you submit? GMIHub.ca is the place. Please visit our website at GMIHub.ca and click on Family Christmas to find out how you can submit your song today.
You could be a part of the GMI Hub Family Christmas Volume 4.